Now that you've worked out how to streamline your prints with f-strings, it's time to find a string within a string. One of the most useful string methods is find. As its name implies, this method allows you to find the location of one string within another string, commonly referred to as a substring. To use find, you tack it on the end of a variable or a string literal, with the string you want to find typed between the parentheses. The value that find returns is an index of the first occurrence of the string you pass to it. Let's take a look at that in the interactive window. Let's start with a phrase. So the variable phrase is going to be assigned to the string literal, "The fire alarm keeps beeping." If you were to use the find method instead of the brackets, you choose what the substring is that you're looking for within the string. So in this case, we're going to say, look for fire. Let's type phrase.find, parenthesis, fire in double quotes, close parenthesis. It will return the index of the first occurrence of the substring inside the string. So in this case, it's the fourth index point. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know that's the fifth position, but again, starting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where this begins. Great. What if the substring doesn't exist within the string? Let's type phrase.find and a random word. You'll get a return of -1, meaning that it did not find it. So, as a note, don't forget that it requires that the case matches. So, if I give it a capital F for fire, it will return -1. Let's try another example. I'll call it a new phrase, and it will be equal to, I put a string inside your string. In this particular case, when you say new phrase.find, what will you get if you type in string? So in this case, it's just the first occurrence. It did not return the second one. That returns the index only of the first occurrence starting from the beginning of the string. And note, if you had a string, let's say of a phone number, if you were trying to find the number 4 as, in this case, an integer, it gives you an error. It's saying here in the feedback, it's a type error. The value needs to be a string, not an integer that it's going to search for. So you would require finding a literal string of 4, and it's right there at the very beginning, index 0. Sometimes you may want to replace all the occurrences of a particular string within a string. Since find returns the index of the first occurrence of a substring, you can't easily use it to perform this operation. But strings have a replace method that replaces each instance of a substring with another string. Just like this method find, you tack replace onto the end of a variable or a string literal. In this case, though, you need to put two strings inside the parentheses and separate them with a comma. The first would be the substring that you want to find, and the second is a string with which you want to replace each occurrence of the substring. Let's try that out in the interactive window. So just like find, you tack the method replace onto the end of the variable or the string literal. Let's try that out. Let's say we had a variable called my story. Okay, and in this case, you wanted to replace using .replace. And you can see here it says, put in the old, meaning the substring you were looking for, to be replaced by the new string. So I'll say, look for the truth and replace it with lies. Now, how cool is that? Now, what happened to my story itself? You might remember that strings are immutable objects, and replace won't alter the myStory variable. And using the replace method doesn't alter the string myStory. If you immediately type myStory onto the interactive window, you'll see that if you wanted to change the value of the string myStory, you need to reassign it. So again, a bit of a refresher on this, you would say, I would like to assign my story to, in this case, this replacement. So you'd say, let's say we want to do the same thing, exchanging the truth for lies. So now, what's inside my story? You'll see here that it's been modified and reassigned. Replace will replace every single instance of the substring with the replacement text. What if you had another string that was assigned to some of the stuff? So here's the text, and you wanted a new version of the text. And you wanted to do a couple of replacements. Say you wanted to replace some of with all. But you also wanted to replace stuff with things. Well, you'd have to do them one at a time. So new text says all of the stuff, and you could say, okay, well, new text. I also want to do new text dot replace stuff, things. So now you've accomplished both. The replacement method replaces every instance of a particular substring with a replacement text. Now, if you want to replace multiple different substrings within a string, then you need to use replace multiple times.